make you vibe and step. Big energy when I drop this lyric. Make some noise if you like this rhythm. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it? Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it. This one here make you, this one here make you. This one here make you, this one here make you. Big energy when I drop this lyric. This one here make you, this one here make you. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. This one here make you, this one. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it? Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it. Big energy when I drop this lyric. Make some noise if you like this rhythm. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it.
What's good guys, so in this video I'm going to be breaking down a really cool high energy track that's in a genre I've never even done before, but I've still managed to integrate my own style and voice. And speaking of voice, this video is actually sponsored by Audemy. They let me try out their vocal tool and I've managed to integrate my own voice into this sample as well as some other vocal samples. So I'm going to break down all the plugins, VSTs, effects that I've used to create this track, and hopefully you'll learn something and be able to integrate these tips into your own projects. And lastly, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, where we work on your production goals and take where you are at now and where you're trying to get to in your music production, whether it's mixing, arrangement, composition, networking, social media, branding yourself as a music producer, anything you're currently stuck with, you can book a free call down below. It's half an hour where we discuss where you're at and where you're trying to get to and how I can help you. So let's get into the intro. This is what it sounds like. I'm so excited for those drums to come in. So really this track started with these first two layers, and I did actually mute this for the first 4 bars, but I'll play it here. This is what it sounded like without any processing. And then with processing, I've just pitched it down 1 semitone to match the project, added some halftime, and then a bunch of compression and a bit of this Portal preset full shape pan. So it's just giving it this kind of chopped effect. And then we get this. So it just sounds a bit smoother, and it really just has this nice bounce to it, especially being a melody. And then I've layered it with this sitar, which I've just chopped up, and that sounds like this. And so together these two layers really just create this sort of dreamy ambience, and all I've really done to the sitar is just add a bunch of reverb and delay, and then I've EQ'd out a lot of the lows, so it's just really thin and just sitting nicely on top. So I've just layered it with the synth bass, which is the bass Summer Nights from Kavi. It's his Confessions to Analog Lab Bank, and it just sounds like this. And that bass line basically just continues throughout the sample. I think later on I have a variation where I've just pitched that up, but that's basically it. Super simple, just a nice warm subby bass. Now this is where I have this top line I wrote, which I just laid on my MIDI keyboard and came up with this. So this is the Valet in Vegas, the synth keys preset in Scorch, and I've just cranked up this effect a little bit, and it ended up sounding like this, just with a bit of reverb on it. So it's a super simple and catchy melody. It has that solemn, emotional feeling. And when you're trying to create catchy melodies, which is almost any melody, just making it simple, repetitive. This is something you can play with one hand on a piano, and you want melodies that you're able to sing or again play with one finger on a keyboard. You don't want them to be super complex because it's going to be less memorable. And then all I've done is basically copy and paste it and then just change that last note to have a bit of a turnaround or some variation. But so now this is where we get into the juice of the sample. And so what I actually did for this is I used my phone and recorded a voice memo of me humming or kind of singing. I don't want to use the word singing too strongly in this, but I'm going to get to how I've managed to improve it. And so basically what I did with these layers is I took a voice note that I recorded, but keep in mind that I did add auto-tune just to try and make up for my lack of singing ability, and it sounded like this. So, you know, with a bit of auto-tune, reverb, it's not the worst, but I'm by no means a singer. And so what I was able to do is go to Order Me and just press convert. And basically I was able to pick like from a bunch of different vocalists, singers, rappers, his voices with like a soul sound, jazz, rock, hip hop, Latin, all these different kind of cadences and registers and voices.
I'll share you, Lord, if you just call.
I've been watching you force a phase away. You're staying. I talk bullshit a lot. No more fuck shit, I'm done. Damn right, I'm the one. Damn right, I'm the one. Coming back, she looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening.
So super cool, and because my project's in D minor, you're even able to select what pitch you'd like that vocal in. And one thing to note is you'll see here, there's this like core pitch range. So again, because my project was in D minor, it was helpful to find vocals that sat better in that register. And then you have some more settings here where you can sort of change the conversion strength and just help maintain the original sound. And then it's really cool that you can actually isolate vocals from like the instrumental. You can take away background vocals, any kind of reverb, echo, noise, anything like that. And so we go from just... And so I found these three that I liked and I layered them as if, you know, I had literally a group of women singing for me, because it was a more like ethereal, ambient background melody that I guess I was trying to sing. All I did was added a bunch of reverb, making it sit like further out and sound far away. Added a lot of this RVox compression, which is probably one of my favorite compressors for vocals. And then I've added some delay, and these are basically the same effects I've done to all three, so I'll play you them individually. So I mean, literally taking my singing and being able to get that is pretty crazy. And then when you layer it together, which I did also add my own vocal to the stack, I got this. One thing to note here though is where you see this transient at the beginning of this little section is I kind of had a bit of a voice crack when I recorded it, and this vocal tool will even pick up on things like that. So just something to keep in mind with things that you are putting in. Try and get a clean sort of recording or demo that you can put in, because it can even pick up on details like that and replicate it. So, but also just play around with a bunch of different voices that you can, because some of them will sound better than others when you're trying to convert to a different sound. So then I thought I'd experiment a bit more with some other vocals. Now I actually took a vocal from Splice, pitched it to my project, and this is what it sounded like.
You said that I don't deserve you.
So it just ended up sounding a bit thin because of the way it was pitched. So I ended up finding a different vocal sound that ended up sounding like this.
You said that I don't deserve you.
So already a more full and actually realistic sounding voice, and when you just couple that with, again, some more compression, using RVox, I've used a multi-band compressor, I've got a lot of reverb here, but a bit less than those previous vocals. Also, the EQ on these is a bit smaller or contained to a smaller range, so the other ones are sitting further and higher out, and then these are just a bit closer. And then I've also EQ'd out a lot of the lows and some of the highs there as well, so just to create some separation from those more ambient vocals. And I basically copy and pasted it, and on this one I just pitched it down an entire octave. So now together we get this.
You said that I don't deserve you. I never wanted to hurt you. You said that I don't deserve you. I never wanted to hurt you.
So a cool big stack of vocals that I was able to take just from 2 files. So, and then just leading up to the verse, we have the drums come in here. So I've given it a lot of grit and body and low end focus because I didn't want it to be too overwhelming. I have a lot of vocals in the mids, you know, I don't want things to clash too much, but without any processing, it sounded like this. So kind of a cool Latin, Brazilian kind of like groove, and all I did was pitched it up to, kind of found that range where I just thought it sounded nice in the mix and with the project, because I always say this, but you should also pitch your percussion elements, especially if they're audio files or MIDI, just play around with the pitch. You know, for example, in hip hop, you're always going to pitch your 808s, or at least you should be, to match the key of the song or the scale of the song. So do the same with your percussion, because even if it's a hi-hat or a tambourine, those things are going to sit better in your tracks in certain keys. So always play around with that. I've got halftime, so now it's giving it more of this kind of dragged, like low end effect. And then I've added flanger. So these 2 plugins are almost like always my go-to when it comes to a lot of percussion elements in my samples and tracks. It's just something that gives it this kind of spacey, wide effect, and I really like that on percussion. And then I've got this MDN tape plugin, which I just love when it comes to like giving it more grit and just aggression, and I've kind of cranked up this high bias here, so it's just bringing in a little bit more of that kind of high end, a little bit of multi-band compression, just taming some of that low end, because it's already, there's a lot going on in the low end, and also it's where the bass is sat. And then I've kind of done like a weird little boost here and boosting the sides here as well, just to make it sit a bit better with the bass. Okay, and so now getting into the verse, this is where it really picks up in energy, and we have a really cool vocal coming in.
One here make your vibe and step. Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make you, this one here make you. Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make your vibe and step. Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make your vibe and step. Big energy when I drop this lyric. Make some noise if you like this rhythm. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it? Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it.
So this is where I've gone in a direction I did not expect this to go. This is a very kind of like UK garage kind of vocal. That's the genre, that's what it's called if you don't know garage. So we've got 4 new layers in this. I'll start with the first simple layer, which is the percussion. So I have this playing, and without any processing, it just sounded like this. So it's really like a kind of techno-y house percussion loop, and it just kind of layered nicely with this. just a really nice kind of bounce to it, and all I did was just pitched it up 2 as well, and then I ended up EQing out most, if not like all the lows, the mids as well, and just kind of containing it to this one small portion with a bit of compression. And the thing about compressors is they all have their own kind of sound and flavor to them, if you will, but really play around with the inputs, the outputs, the thresholds, you know, the settings. Things like attack and release are going to make a big difference on a compressor, so just finding that sweet spot and where it actually compresses nicely into the mix. And so now we get this. So it's a little bit more subdued and it just sits nicely. And then we've got this lead. So this lead was the whatever part 2 preset, I don't know, from the AYN Volume 3 Analog Lab Bank. And basically I just played this in on my keyboard and I ended up chopping it and just kind of having it repeat, but with a little bit of reverb and the portal effect, giving it that 4-shape pan like chop effect, we get this. It's honestly like such a, I would describe it as almost like a plasticky sound. It's very kind of like high-end, thin, cheap sounding in a way, but it's just, I think, really blended nicely into this, especially because this sits so like kind of thinly like in the high end, and then I've got that low body from the percussion with halftime and the synth bass. Then there's just all this space in the middle, which is just, I think, where the vocals sit really nicely. And with this lead, all I did was added a little bit of halftime, and just so you can hear the difference, because I do use this plugin a lot, this is what it sounds like with a full wet mix. So you can hear how it just gives a little bit more of that low end. It introduces some of those low end frequencies and then a little bit of reverb on it. And the EQ, like I said, cutting out pretty much all the lows, a lot of the low mids as well. And so now I have this vocal, which was also from Splice, and it originally sounded like this.
Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make your vibe and step. Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make your vibe and step. Big energy when I drop this lyric. Make some noise if you like this rhythm. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it.
So this UK kind of rap vocal, which, yeah, you'd probably hear on some kind of like a grime track or a garage track. So I don't often use vocals like this, but it just had a lot of that energy and like rhythm to it. Literally, I mean, he's rapping about rhythm. And so this was just like a few different vocal samples that I put together. So I just filtered some of the voices on Order Me. I set it to low hip hop, and I found this guy Clifton, which sounded like this.
The beat mash up the place, turn up the bass and next some sound boy run. And it will end your week just like a Sunday. We mash up the.
So it's super cool because especially with a lot of like UK music, you get a lot of like Caribbean influence. So hearing the kind of like the reggae, the, you know, whether it's a Jamaican or just Caribbean kind of accent, I just thought would work really well. And yeah, sure enough, this is what it sounded like.
Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make your vibe and step. Yo, I bring the vibe and check. This one here make you, this one here make you. Yo, I bring the vibe and check.
And you know, just doing little chops like that, I think work really well. And it kind of has that like DJ-esque like sound to it. It sounds like a DJ's kind of like, you know, bringing it back and like doing those little like stutters. I don't really know why I put it into a second track here. I think I was just trying to mess around with some of the effects slightly, so there's a bit of variation. And then lastly, building into the chorus, you've got this saxophone layer, which you're about to hear in full, but I just reversed it and then I put the fade on it, so we get this kind of swell, this crescendo. I always say this, but it just helps build some anticipation the way a riser does into the next section, and it just sounded like this. Just some reverb delay, and I'm also panning it with this pancake plugin, and so that's just, you know, keeping it kind of moving around the stereo field and just out of the way of a lot of the other instruments. And so now going into the chorus, we get this.
The air if you're vibing with it. This one here make you, this one here make you.
think it's such a cool blend of like UK garage and then my own kind of, I always love that like solemn emotional vibe to my samples and melodies. And so just continuing with that kind of rap vocal, just like stuttering back and forth, call and response, you know.
This one here make you, this one here make you. This one here make you, this one here make you. Big energy when I drop this lyric. This one here make you, this one here make you. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. This one here make you, this one. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it?
I cannot stress enough how when it comes to your drums and percussion, just doing little things like this where you leave spaces and gaps, it creates this interest, this rhythmic, like just anticipation. You're like, whoa, it catches the listener's attention, and it's just a nice way to break things up and create variation.
This one here make you, this one. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it? Wanna see everybody stand.
And so I've got that lead coming back in, but I played a different melody on this one. So this one kind of arpeggiates a bit more this time, which just basically means it's going like up and down sort of the scale, and it just sounds like this. And so I played that in myself, and I would have moved around the notes slightly, but I like the imperfection of it not being, you know, completely on the grid like this. You see, this just gives it this realism, this imperfection, which is really what we're often striving for in music. When everything sounds too perfect and quantized to the grid, it sounds too digital and just, it's not as pleasing as the imperfections. And then I've just layered these multi-keys. If you don't know what multi-keys are, basically there's a lot of banks, especially in Analog Lab, that have this setting that every note you press will cycle through like maybe 4 different sounds. So you'll see here that I have the exact same chords playing, but it cycles through these different sounds. So you get really cool textures in your melodies and just variation that you wouldn't have got otherwise. And so I love the way that this chord progression progresses, because it's cycling through these different sounds on each note. So check this out. So there's a lot of variation for, you know, most of these just being the exact same chords. And then we have the saxophone that I mentioned earlier coming in here, and I think I chopped this up slightly, really with just some reverb in it and pitch to the project. And I often find if you want sounds that are more dreamy and ambient sounding, they usually sit in the high end. That's what I found in my experience. So just EQing out like all the lows like I've mentioned before, and just having it sit with a lot of reverb and sounding washed out in that high end, just like how I find you often get that kind of dreamy, nostalgic sound. I think also oftentimes things like saxophones, trumpets, a lot of brass instruments give us this kind of like nostalgic sound. And so now going into the outro, which I'm actually gonna let it loop back to the chorus because I just think it works so well. Sounds like this.
See everybody stand, no sitting. Hands in the air if you're vibing with it. This one here make you, this one here make you. This one here make you, this one here make you. This one here make you, this one here make you. Big energy when I drop this lyric. This one here make you, this one here make you. Wanna see everybody stand, no sitting. This one here make you, this one. Try hard but they can't stop this feeling. Screaming, hey DJ, can you wheel it? Wanna see.
Oh, I love the emotion, the energy of this. It's really funny how this turned out, because like I said, I've never made a kind of UK garage track, but just following that sound and where it takes me, I love what ends up coming out, just things that I've never made before. So yeah, just a big thanks again to Audemy for letting me use these vocal tools to get cool sounds and being able to get a bunch of variation just from a couple vocal samples that I already had. So, and like I mentioned earlier, if you want to work with me one-on-one, then you can book a free call down below. It's half an hour where we discuss where you're currently at, where you're trying to get to, what your struggles are. Then we can work together and fast track your progress to get to where you're trying to get to a lot quicker. So click that link below. So now if you'd like to see me break down a sample that's also high energy, but with more of a Jersey club feel to it, as well as some experimental textures, then you can watch this video right here. I had a lot of fun making this one. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.